Triple G rolls on. We are making the rounds here on ESPN.com. Jim Basketball alongside Brian Campbell. Dan Rayfield joins us in a moment. He's boxing's biggest rising star, and he did not disappoint on Saturday with his 12th straight title defense. Gennady Golovkin now 31-0 after a second-round knockout of Marco Antonio Rubio. Brian, kudos to Triple G. He gets all of it. But are you just a little disappointed at the level of competition that Rubio brought to the ring?
No question about it, Jim. More than just a little disappointed, because when you look at that as a whole, it was really a bad weekend for Rubio, who had the unprofessionalism moment of coming in a pound and a half overweight, never was able to get back on the scale to take it off and was docked. And then his performance in the ring sort of led to a conclusion that was another knockout for Triple G, but it didn't give us the fight maybe we expected. And maybe we expected that because Rubio was a different opponent from what we've seen over Triple G's recent fights. Bigger, longer, a guy with a tough reputation, a puncher. Outside of a good first round, Jim, where I kind of liked what Rubio did, once he tasted that power of Golovkin, essentially the fight was over. He was down. It looked like maybe he could have gotten up, took his time, didn't want any more. Another knockout for Triple G.
Rubio was outclassed. Buenos noches to ESPN boxing insider Dan Rayfield. Dan, what is Golovkin's ceiling?
I think very simply, Jim, the ceiling is he could be the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world at some point. He's on his way to major fights against big names. It's a work in progress, but he is a fantastic fighter. And I have said on Making the Rounds before, for those who are necessarily on the bandwagon or don't believe, that sometimes you just have to let your eyes believe what they see. And I know in Triple G, I see a guy who's got prodigious power, who's got as best style in terms of excitement for the fans as there is in boxing, but he's not just a brawler. He can box. He's got skills. He's just the total package. He's a pleasure to deal with. I mean, not that the fans necessarily care about where we come from the media, but I can say on my point, you can't find a better guy in the business to deal with as far as him or his team. But talent-wise, this guy's got the possibility to be the best fighter in the world pound for pound when we see people like Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao exit.
All right, listen, I'm going to want both of you to tackle this question as we look into the future. Who should Triple G fight next? We'll start with you, Dan.
Well, there's a big difference between who he should fight next and who he likely will fight next. Of course, who he should fight next, and it's not his decision, would be either a Cotto or a Canelo. Those, or even a Mayweather. If Mayweather wanted to go to 154 and meet him for the junior middleweight title, he would probably drop down. He told me he would drop down. So those are the guys he should fight. Those are the best fights for boxing. But who he probably will fight is entirely different. And the reason is because the Mayweather fight's not happening for a litany of reasons. Cotto and Canelo are probably going to fight each other, which is great. That's another awesome fight that the fans have looked forward to. So it's not like you can say they're ducking Triple G because they're going to fight each other, but that's likely to take place in May. So what probably will happen is that he will come back. He's going to fight his next fight in February. They're going back to Monte Carlo, where he fought 2 times before, and fight on a card there. HBO will televise it in the United States when they didn't do it the last time because of various issues related to the production. But he'll fight in February. He'll fight in Monte Carlo, and the opponent that they have targeted, which is a good opponent for that level of a fight, is England's Martin Murray, who's a very top contender. He gave Sergio Martinez one of the toughest fights in a long time. He barely lost, went to Argentina to do the fight. He can't get a visa to come to the United States, so doing this fight overseas makes sense. So he's a worthy competitor. He's a good fighter. It can happen in Europe, and to make things even better, Martin Murray fights this Saturday in Monte Carlo, a place where he has also fought before, and so they're on the same schedule. And if he wins his fight and he wants Triple G, I believe that's the fight that can get made, and that's the fight that probably would happen come February.
Dan's right on base with this right here. You know, who he should fight, of course, is the #1 middleweight from a O'Neal sense. Hopefully he will get that chance against the winner of Canelo Cotto in 2015. But I think this looks to be a very big year for Golovkin. Even if he comes back against a guy like Murray, who's a respected contender, a guy who's going to have size and reach advantages against him, that's a decent fight. But on a whole, I think it will be a big year for Golovkin for this one reason. There's no longer that excuse that this guy doesn't draw money. He drew a great crowd in his debut 3 months ago to New York's Madison Square Garden, had the huge sellout in his LA debut, this time in California. Look, as we know, the sky is the limit, but Jim, there's no longer going to be that excuse of this guy doesn't bring anything to the table. He's not just boxing's next big thing. He's really close to being boxing's big thing, and that's the real key. The opponents, they're not going to have an excuse. They're going to be there.
As far as future matchups, what the masses want and what's reality often in boxing are not the same.
But that gap, it's closing.
It's getting close. He fought on the West Coast for the first time with the intent on expanding that fan base to the Latino community, and Triple G did not tarnish his rising star. We are making the rounds right here on the boxing page of ESPN.com. For Dan Rayfield and Brian Campbell, I'm Jim Basquez.